Good morning. Welcome to First Mover, your first global look at today's action in the Bitcoin, blockchain, and digital asset space. I'm your host, Christine Lee. And joining me is my co-host, CoinDesk Managing Editor of Global Capital Markets, Lawrence Lewitinn. Good morning. Happy Friday, Lawrence.
Yes, indeed. Happy Friday. For some.
Happy Friday. All right, let's take a live look at Bitcoin. The CoinDesk Bitcoin price XBX index is currently trading at $47,455. Bitcoin is trading pretty flat, down about 28 basis points. And the CoinDesk Ether price ETX index is at 34.53. ETH is also pulling back slightly, almost 5% for the day. And the DFX, CoinDesk's new DeFi index, currently trading at $628. DeFi also taking more of a pullback, over 10% in the past 24 hours. The most reliable reference prices for institutions since 2014 are now published under the CoinDesk brand, trusted globally as a leader in crypto news, events, and data. So, Lawrence, what is happening with the markets? We're ending the week with a slight pullback.
Yeah, and the golden cross, which was the 50-day moving average against the 200-day moving average, when the 50-day moving average in Bitcoin goes above the 200-day moving average, that's considered a buy signal. That happened a couple of days ago. That's now being threatened with this recent slight pullback. It's still kind of like about even with the two moving averages. But what it is a lot better than what's going on in the alts, where you see the likes of Solana down about 10%, and some of the other alts that are also down 10%. They're giving back a lot of the big gains. Solana, if you look at it right now, it's nearly 50% off its all-time highs, which happened about a week ago. So, this is a kind of a change in the market enthusiasm for the alts, at least for the time being. Now in ETH, where you're seeing kind of this, you're seeing about $1 billion worth of ETH leave the markets. Zamkar Godbole reported today. So that's usually considered a bullish signal for ETH. So it remains to be seen what happens there. But, in the alts,
yesterday I saw with Bitcoin was over 48,000, breached that resistance level, but it appears that 50,000 resistance level appears to be in full control of the sellers. Also, Lawrence, some news out of Canada that you've been watching.
Yeah, so just one of the things we like to follow here at CoinDesk is the prediction markets. And the prediction markets, a lot of them, for instance, are on, you could trade them on blockchain-based exchanges. And what we're seeing now is that we're seeing the Liberal Party, the Grits, seem to be headed for a victory, but it's not going to be a majority government. Justin Trudeau, a few years ago, when he first came to office, he won with a majority. He had an election in 2019 where he lost that majority, but still was able to make a government. Now the prediction markets are saying he's still going to win re-election. He called an election 5 weeks ago, hoping to capitalize on some of his popularity, but it quickly backfired on him because of what's happening look, this is going to be an expensive election for Canada, $600 million to do it. And it's, there's some other factors involved. So he might just stay even, but that's an expensive way to stay even.
Yeah, it's a big election coming up, and Canada has taken a hit with COVID and now with this election and all the expenses. And aside from that, Maxime Bernier, who is the leader of the People's Party of Canada, new party there that is growing in popularity, has confirmed that he supports Bitcoin and the blockchain industry. And so that is just a week prior to the federal election. So it's interesting to see.
It's not going to help him, unfortunate from him, because he's
maybe he's taking a leaf from Nayib Bukele's book. It never hurts to have the Bitcoin community behind you. All right, moving on. Bitcoin's blockchain data indicates renewed institutional appetite into the block data, showing on-chain transactions greater than $100,000 surged to a record 480 billion on Wednesday. In Bitcoin terms, that equates to a 2-year high of over 10 million BTC. And earlier this week at the SALT conference, I spoke to Sam Bankman-Fried, CEO of crypto exchange FTX, trading firm Alameda Research, as well as co-founder of the Serum Project. And we spoke about institutional adoption of crypto and his conversations with folks on Wall Street, including his former Jane Street Capital coworkers. Have a listen.
It's very different. I mean, obviously things have changed a lot for me in the last 5 years. And I mean, I think one of the craziest things to think about is just, I really liked it there. Like, I had a lot of fun at Jane Street and really, really enjoyed it, really appreciated them. And I kind of didn't think I was ever going to leave when I was there. But it's definitely a little bit surreal, surreal being back. And I think that, like, I still don't, it still feels a little bit out of place, playing games with ex-colleagues and not going to work with them the next day.
Well, have you gotten them interested in crypto? And are they starting to, are folks in Wall Street starting to bridge to the digital financial world?
A lot of people are starting to look into crypto from Wall Street. It's sort of all over the place. And I think it's much larger than the fraction of, market cap or whatever that crypto represents. Its sort of mind share is absolutely massive. Like, such a large fraction of the conversations going on in Wall Street right now are about crypto. And I mean, just look around. This isn't a crypto conference, right? This is a finance, but if
mainstream finance.
If you look at this row, I think like half the companies are crypto companies. Right. Just looking at these booths here, like, crypto has really burst onto the scene in a really big way, especially I would say over the last year or so. And there's just sort of a momentum effect where a few companies started to get involved. And I think Paul Tudor Jones was one of the people who really started that movement off. But fast forward to where we are today, every major finance firm is talking about crypto now.
Speaking of which, your latest raise was $900 billion.
Yep.
At a $18 billion valuation. And you've been on this crazy marketing spree we just spoke to Kevin O'Leary earlier. Steve Curry just announced a spokesperson on FTX, Tom Brady, Gisele Bündchen, Major League Baseball, FTX Arena, formerly the Miami Heat Arena. So what does mass adoption in crypto look like to you when all is said and done with this marketing push?
So I think that when you look at sort of the size, obviously our user base has grown a lot from where it was, but it's still really small by most standards. So we have a few million users on FTX. For context, that's a few percent of what Coinbase and Binance have.
US or FTX?
They're both around a few million at this point, maybe 1 or 2 million each. And so, you put that in context of the 50 to 100 million users that Binance and Coinbase have, but then you compare that to the billion users who are trading equities and, the billions of users who are trading financial instruments in general worldwide. And it really is just the tip of the iceberg. And I think that a lot of what we've been thinking about is, like, what can we do to reach out to tens to hundreds of millions of people in a way which carries some force with it, which is, and we could have tens of millions of Facebook ads. It wouldn't move the needle in that same way.
Do you see everyone, the financial world, just moving on to DEXs, moving on to crypto exchange platforms?
It's not happening tomorrow. And I mean, there's a lot of conversations going on, right? And we're talking with a lot of, asset managers, pension funds, trading firms, banks, investment banks from the financial industry who are all looking into crypto. A few of them have started trading or holding crypto. Others, they're investigating, and they plan to, almost without any exceptions. All of them plan to start doing something with crypto over the next couple of years. But most of them haven't done it yet. Most of them are still in that planning phase. We'll see how it shakes out.
Speaking of which, SEC Chair Gary Gensler making some comments this week and saying that all trading platforms should probably register with the SEC. What are your thoughts when you see the U.S. regulators kind of investigating and zoning in on crypto?
There are a few different ways it could go. And what I'm hopeful for is that it's going to be a sort of collaborative, healthy growth for the industry, frankly, where platforms can get further licensed, where regimes will be built out and made explicit for crypto, And I think that when you look at the exchange side, when you look at the token side, when you look at the stablecoin side, when you look at the futures side, I think those are all places where we expect to see some movement. Obviously we've been talking with the CFTC. We had the LedgerX acquisition, which we're really excited about. And I think we'd be excited to work with, with the SEC, with Gensler, on a lot of sort of common sense regulations and licensing that I think could exist for crypto exchanges. And that's the direction I'm hoping things are going to go in, rather than a more acrimonious direction.
Well, you're talking to the CFTC. Are you talking to the regulators as well? How are those conversations going?
Obviously, I don't want to sort of,
right.
don't want to get into too much detail, but overall, I think they're healthy. And overall, we are always excited to talk to regulators or any who want to reach out to us. We're super happy to have those conversations. I'm super happy to be involved. And, I think whether it's that we are helping to inform them, whether they're informing us, or whether we're talking together about how you might build out a framework that joins together multiple things in the crypto industry. Right now, U.S. crypto exchanges are sort of in the money transmitter regime, which is maybe not the regime that you would ultimately expect them to fall under. And I think that there's a big open question of what the future of that is. I think there are really healthy conversations out there.
What is it in the end?
Right.
But
right?
Speaking of which, I'm glad you're having good conversations with regulators and that they've been productive. On the other side, we've heard from Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong, who's not having such a great time with his tweet storm saying the SEC is a bit sketchy. He's having trouble meeting regulators in person. So when you hear those remarks, do you relate?
I don't know what happened, obviously, behind closed doors, so I don't know what led up to that tweet storm. But something I can confidently say, something went wrong before it got there. We never want to be in that position. We never want to be expressing frustration with regulators on Twitter.
And one-sided
and I think, I think it's sort of a case where probably they're talking past each other. I'm guessing that Coinbase felt like they were failing to get guidance and help from the SEC and were instead just being viewed as an enemy, and where I suspect that the SEC felt like Coinbase maybe should have known better, should have been doing their own homework. I don't know for sure, but those are sort of the signs that you get from what people are saying there. I think that I would really hope that's not how things would play out. We never want to end up there, right?
But is that why perhaps you live in Hong Kong?
So
you don't have to deal with all those issues as much.
It's a good question, and I think that certainly the U.S. regulatory infrastructure is not the easiest and most expedient to get through, but it is the most powerful and ultimately the most important. And I think that we have been engaging pretty actively with it over the last year. I expect that to be increasing rather than decreasing over time. And we have people who are ready to meet with regulators anytime. I'm happy to get on a call anytime and meet in person. And I think that it's just clearly where things are going to be going. Mm-hmm. And I think that the best outcome is a collaborative one there. I do think that there have been other countries that were sort of faster to really think about crypto regulation and licensing. I think obviously you look at Singapore, right, with the MAS, who's been sort of a leader in that. You look at, I can't talk publicly about it, but I think a few other places that we've been talking with that I hope we're going to have announcements out very soon with, but
I did want to mention this Bloomberg report out that says the Financial Stability Oversight Council is looking to a formal review into whether Tether and other stablecoins threaten financial stability.
Right.
Do you think they threaten financial stability?
I don't think they do, and I do think they're extremely valuable. I think that they are great products, and frankly, they're really easy ways to settle transactions. They're really efficient. Whenever we can, we want to settle a transaction with stablecoin. It's just easiest. It's just cheapest. It's fastest. It's such a pain, to go back and say, okay, but what's the address of your bank account? No, not your address, your bank account's physical address of the bank. because that was a field that the forum needed, and then get stuck in limbo for 2 weeks. Like, it's so much easier to use them, and there's a reason that they're becoming an increasingly important part of someone. That being said, I think there's some totally reasonable oversight that you could see from them. And again, I don't know which direction things are going, but what I would hope is that the direction that oversight and regulation goes in is something like, an official regime where they have to fully and transparently disclose exactly what it is the assets that are backing a stablecoin are related to.
You do foresee that, or see that as
I think something like that is going to happen. And I think a sort of transparency-focused regime, focused on transparency and ensuring full backing, would be healthy. And I think it would help the field grow. I think I'd way rather see that than a fight between stablecoins and regulators where banning them was one of the things on the table, because I think that would be really sad. And I think it would really cut off a lot of the value that the industry has started providing.
Crosstalk has also raised a lot of questions about Tether in particular. So has the industry, as you know.
Yep.
I mean, and for simple questions such as, do you know who the CIO of Tether is? What's his name?
It's so I don't know who the CIO is. I mean, I think there are a few members there who are very public, I think. But I think that's a classic case where transparency is what's needed. And I think that, like, getting on the same page with regulators about what should be disclosed.
Does it concern you that you don't know who is, or that they're really, want to keep that hidden? It's the name of the guy of their CIO.
So I definitely hear you on that. And I mean, it's an unfortunate situation. Like, there's been a lot of frustration, a lot of tension there, a lot of rumors. I do fundamentally think that Tether is backed. Like, I do think that there are assets there.
FTX is heavily invested in Tether.
Right, and we ourselves aren't, but many of our users, do hold assets in Tether. It is a token that we support, and frankly, it's a really important one. It's been really important for the crypto industry, and it took on a really hard challenge at a time when no one else wanted to, which was banking, right? Rewind 6 years when almost no major exchanges had bank accounts, or at least stable bank accounts. And Tether was trying to provide fiat on-ramps and off-ramps for the entire industry. Lots of exchanges just farmed that out to Tether. They didn't bother having bank accounts themselves. They just supported Tether and let their users get in and out through Tether creations and redemptions. They got a lot of shit for that. They've gone through a lot. And I do think that it was coming. I made it a while. They helped support the industry for a while. And, I think that there are some pretty reasonable questions you can be asking about transparency there. And and I think that's sort of how this whole thing should have ended up, rather than the mess it's in now, is, I think that regulators probably should have come forward, or maybe they did. I don't know which side sort of, failed to do that dance here, but, and agreed, like, what's going to happen is transparency, right? There's going to be transparency around what the holdings are, and, holders can make informed decisions about it. I think that's a good first step, a healthy first step. And instead, what we've seen is lots of accusations, most of which, frankly, I think are at least partially false, combined with sort of a disengagement from the regulatory sector, which just creates unhappiness, tension, and uncertainty.
That was SBF, Sam Bankman-Fried, CEO of FTX and Alameda Research. Lawrence, I did try to get that name of that CIO at Tether, but coming up, checking in on Asia and crypto markets update with blockchain infrastructure firm BTCF.
Probably enough fire.
The Crypto Markets Update is presented by Grayscale, the world's largest digital currency asset manager.
All right, checking in on Bitcoin. The CoinDesk Bitcoin price XVX index is trading just under $48,000. Bitcoin flatlining about 30 basis points. The CoinDesk Ether price ETX index is also down more than 5% over the past 24 hours. ETH is trading at about just over $3,400. And the CoinDesk DFX DeFi index right now trading at $630. DeFi also taking a hit of almost 10% over the past 24 hours. Joining us now to discuss the crypto markets is Charles Allen, CEO of Ethereum-focused infrastructure firm BTCS. Welcome to the show, Charles. And so what is your forecast of Ethereum, the price, given the ETH 2.0 upgrade and the burning of over $2 billion worth of new ETH as part of that upgrade?
So we're very bullish on Ethereum. I mean, obviously, it's a huge percentage of our holdings. We're maintaining and helping, support that infrastructure, running, 240 validator nodes. With respect to the price and where we think it may go, right? I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, so I don't, want to, don't hold me to it. But I think there's, I would see it very easily in the, post merging of the chains and moving to the Beacon chain and proof of stake network. I mean, I could easily see it, doubling if not more from current levels, right? I think that, with just the number of, applications and interest in the blockchain, it really is the, the kind of the blue chip of crypto when it comes to, smart contract based, blockchain.
Well, BTCS has had an interesting evolution. You started out as an e-commerce platform in 2013, had crypto partnerships developed in 2014, BTC mining 2015, crypto treasury development 2019, and more recently pivoting to ETH. And is that where you stand right now? Are you just pivoting from BTC and with a more ETH focused, if not all ETH focused?
Well, I think our focus is really not so much just ETH, but a pivot towards proof of stake blockchains, right? And providing the infrastructure behind that. So, you kind of mentioned some of our history, right? Like the e-commerce business is just what we started with, right? This is back in the day when, it was us as Bitcoin Shop and, Roger Ver's Bitcoin Store, and there were very few players, right? And so, we pivoted and became the first public company to mine Bitcoin in 2014 and 2015, had a merger teed up with Spindoolies, and just the market wasn't there for us. We were way too early. I don't think that business model was appreciated in the public markets. I mean, if you look now, you've got, Marathon, which we actually helped, I kind of helped them get started in that business back in 2017, Riot Blockchain. You just look across the board at all the public companies, and the majority of them are mining Bitcoin, right? Obviously, there's the Coinbases and other companies that are focused on exchanges. And we kind of looked at this and said, okay, let's, where can we create the most value for our shareholders? Where do we think the market is going? And what's most disruptive? And to us, that conclusion was, we love Bitcoin. We own like 90 Bitcoin. We're big believers, but we also see huge opportunity in Web 3.0 and applications being built on top of these, next generation cutting edge blockchains, right? So our goal is to secure those blockchains, right? Phase one. And we're doing Ethereum, Cardano, and Tezos right now, on our kind of slated, our slate of blockchains we want to secure is, we announced Avalanche this morning. We own, Polkadot, Kusama, Solana, and a few others, right? And the end goal is to secure those blockchains and then build a platform on top where, users can delegate to our pools, right? And we really want to be the infrastructure play for proof of stake blockchains, if that makes sense.
So, Charles, I want to ask about those so-called ETH killers that you just mentioned. Recently we've seen the prices go down in them. Do you think they were routed in some way, in a long-term way, by things such as what happened with Solana over the past few days? Has the market reassessed its view that these alternatives might overthrow ETH down the road, or is it just kind of a temporary blip? Where you think things are going to go in the next few months?
We'll see. I mean, obviously, you mentioned Solana. That had an issue. Was it like 400,000 transactions per second? Basically, ended up with a full restart of the network. I mean, that's huge. That number of transactions being processed is huge. I don't know if Solana overtakes, Ethereum in the future. I think anyone that suggests they know the answer to that question is just, they've just got a belief, but no one really knows. So our view is, we really like Ethereum. We like the amount of development happening on that blockchain, but there's also really, there's a lot of other cutting edge technologies coming to market, and we shouldn't ignore those, right? So, the overall view is we see this technology as something that's here to stay. We see, the development of DeFi and NFTs being built on these various platforms as just, kind of game changing, on a world economic, stage.
And there's still a lot of glitches. I mean, we're learning that 3 million ETH was stolen from DeFi platform SushiSwap recently, and there are still problems. Also, Shiba Inu is up 44% amid a Coinbase listing. Any thoughts on the utility of these altcoins?
Well, I think it's, it's very early days, right? I mean, if you look at a lot of the altcoins, just price movement, right? Solana was, the end of 2020 around $2. It's peaked around 200. Now it's, back in the 140 range, right? So I think there's just been a huge kind of cycle of money flowing from, into the alts, and maybe it'll probably flow back out a little bit, and maybe in and out. We'll see over time. What's more interesting to me is development, right? And all these projects are so new. I mean, these things, haven't been around for 5-10 years. I mean, we're talking about stuff that's getting launched and going live in a matter of months and within a year. And obviously, bugs will be found, right? I mean, there was a hiccup with Cardano, right? There's been Solana just got paused. So I think as these products get launched and start deploying, we're going to see bugs. It's just inevitable, right? We've seen that over the last 10 years with Bitcoin and Ethereum. I mean, it's just,
and it's interesting that you're moving away from the proof of work protocols toward proof of stake. So it clearly shows where you see the future headed. Charles, we got to wrap it there, but also congratulations. BTCS is trading on the NASDAQ under the ticker symbol BTCS. So looking forward to progress on that front. Charles, appreciate your time. That was BTCS CEO Charles Allen. All right, time now for the daily forecast, an update on what's happening in the Asia crypto markets. Here's Angie Lau of Forecast News.
Welcome to the Daily Forecast, September 17th, 2021. I'm Angie Lau, Editor-in-Chief of Forecast News, covering all things blockchain. Well, we're just 7 days away from strict new crypto regulations in South Korea going full effect. The latest on that story and much more coming up. Let's get you up to speed from Asia to the world. All right, in South Korea, there may be dozens and dozens of crypto exchanges, except all but 4 exchanges have yet to fulfill new regulatory requirements as the September 24th deadline quickly approaches. Non-compliance means exchanges need to shut down. Many are now desperately calling for an extension of the grace period. No mercy, though. Authorities say those exchanges must announce their closure by tonight, which may go down in history as Black Friday for crypto exchanges in South Korea. Forecast News reporter Danny Park has more.
South Korea's Financial Services Commission has laid down the law, but only 4 of Korea's largest crypto exchanges have managed to comply, with just a week left for the country's virtual asset exchanges to fully comply with the new regulations. There are 2 requirements. Exchanges that fail to meet both the criteria will be shut down. The government mandates that the exchanges notify their users 7 days prior to closure, which is today. 24 exchanges that only manage the certification will operate as token-to-token services from September 24th. Bubblegate, Bitcoin, Cordax, and Flybit have already announced the closure of their Korean won-to-crypto markets. One expert believes the likelihood of these 24 exchanges to complete the bank contract requirement is less than 10%.
시간이 굉장히 촉박하고 두 번째는 은행들이 본인들이 형사적, 민사적인 책임을 져야 되기 때문에 굉장히 신중하게 검토하고 있다. 이러한 이유 때문에 좀 10% 가능성밖에 안 남았다.
Kim adds considerable damage is expected from this mass closure, but that it is a necessary passage for the industry to move forward. For Forecast News, I'm Danny Park.
Meanwhile, in China, the launch date of a central bank-backed digital currency, or ECNY, is becoming more clear. Olympic athletes, get your digital wallets ready because that may be the only way you can buy anything, souvenirs or otherwise, at the 2022 Olympic Winter Games. Timmy Shen has more from Taipei, Taiwan.
Fan Yifei, deputy governor of the Chinese Central Bank, said that the ECNY pilot preparation of the Winter Olympics is in the sprint stage. He said that in a journey to investigate the progress of the ECNY Winter Olympics pilot earlier this week. The 24th Winter Olympic Games will be held in Beijing and Zhangjiakou on February 4th, 2022, with tens of thousands of participants from various countries. ECNY will undergo the first crucial international test. According to the ECNY white paper released by the People's Bank of China, non-Chinese travelers can use the CBDC in small amounts while remaining anonymous. Currently, China has issued 18 batches of digital RMB red envelopes with a total value of over $43 million in 9 cities across the country to promote the adoption of the digital yuan. For Forecast News, I'm Timmy Shan, Taipei, Taiwan.
And finally today, switching gears and switching continents. It's been just over a week since El Salvador's historic adoption of Bitcoin as legal tender, and we are starting to hear stories from the ground. How is Bitcoin adoption going? Well, it's something a lot of developing economies around the world, including right here in Asia, are no doubt paying close attention. Forecast News' Lachlan Keller has the story.
El Salvador has seen a rocky start to its first week of having the digital currency Bitcoin as legal tender. First country in the world to do so, saw a 15% crash in the Bitcoin market just hours after launch. Technical problems plaguing the country's digital wallets and widespread demonstrations against the government and the adoption. Alex Shipp, Chief Strategy Officer, private decentralized finance platform Offshift, was on the ground in El Salvador when BTC became legal currency. Shipp found that most of the Bitcoin adoption in the country is occurring in a small coastal town of only about 3,000 people named El Zonte, or as it's known in the crypto industry, Bitcoin Beach. Outside of that, even in the country's capital of San Salvador, finding a Bitcoin user isn't easy, he says. On Wednesday, the nation marked its bicentennial. Celebrations were marked by more protests against the government, including the decision to adopt Bitcoin as legal currency.
Part of what's happened is that the government coming in and enforcing some kind of legal tender law, are you doing something more or less authoritarian?
And that, Shipp says, is making a lot of people who don't really know much about Bitcoin turn against it before they're even educated on it. For Forecast News, I'm Lachlan Keller.
And that's the daily forecast from our vantage point right here in Asia. For more, visit forecast.news. I'm Editor-in-Chief Angie Lau. Until next time.
All right. Thank you, Angie, for that update. Coming up, Crypto Bank Anchorage and checking in with CoinDesk Global Policy and Regulation Managing Editor, Nick Day.
When we say we want to reimagine money, it turns out we're going to the heart of the matter. Imagination has always been a key part of what money is. Imagination in the form of cultural creativity is also something that the cryptocurrency community has in spades. And to the outsider, that can be a reason to dismiss it as frivolous, as something built on nothing. To dismiss it for these reasons, though, is to ignore that all money is imagined.
Welcome back to another check-in with CoinDesk Global Policy and Regulation Managing Editor, Nick Day, who is also the editor of CoinDesk The State of Crypto newsletter. Good morning, Nick. All right, so I saw you wrote an article recently on the U.S. Treasury, and they are shifting their focus onto stablecoin issues. What can you tell us?
Hey, good morning. Yes, the Treasury Department's been talking about stablecoins for quite a while, and yesterday, it was reported that officials in the department are preparing a report to address, concerns around stablecoin growth, transactions, settlement, uses, potential impact on financial stability. And, this is going to be presented to the President's Working Group on Financial Markets, which is a collection of top financial regulators. They've already met once this year, back in July, to discuss stablecoins and kind of, kick this report process, off. But now it looks like, we might start seeing possible recommendations around how to regulate stablecoins, or at least more detail on what the concerns that regulators have are.
So is this going to actually do anything? Like, is there any teeth to this, or is this just sort of like going to be a nice white paper that everyone reads and then quietly shuffles into the pile of other things that goes on the president's desk?
Yeah, I think that's the big question, right? Now, the fact that this is getting presented to folks like Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, SEC Chair Gary Gensler, acting CFTC Chair Rosalind Benham, acting Comptroller Michael Stu, FDIC Chair Jelena McWilliams, it does feel like the right people to do something are going to be seeing this report. If they decide that there are risks to whatever, Gary Gensler, for example, has already been, sounding the war drum, saying, we have to look at stablecoins. They might be securities. He's calling on Congress to enact legislation to grant the SEC more authority. He's been kind of, signaling that he would love to see more regulation of this, specific sector. So it is entirely possible. I think it's plausible that if any group of regulators were to come together and say, stablecoins are a risk, they're immediate, we have to do something, it's this group. And, what that might look like is probably still ways out, but certainly, I think we can expect something.
Would this thing even have, but again, would it have any teeth if, for instance, some of the stablecoins, one in particular I can think of, isn't even located in the United States? It's operating God knows where, allegedly in Hong Kong, and doesn't seem to be particularly concerned with disclosing anything anytime soon. I mean, like, is there anything the government can do, even if they insist on it?
Well, so the concern, I guess, or the potential points of impact are probably going to be, the crypto exchanges that are listing stablecoins, or the trading platforms that let you convert stablecoins into fiat or into other cryptocurrencies. So, if I had to speculate on how the government might kind of restrict stablecoins, it would be by telling companies like Coinbase, hey, this is in our view an unregistered security, or whatever, this fits XYZ criteria that we now have, and exert pressure to try and get them to delist the token, and say, if you are a U.S. citizen and you're interacting with this and buying this thing, then it's a violation of this regulation that we have.
Right. We'll see how that develops. Nick, thank you so much for joining us this morning. That was CoinDesk Managing Editor of Global Policy and Regulation, Nick Day. Don't forget to sign up for the State of Crypto newsletter on CoinDesk.com.
The CoinDesk Spotlight is brought to you by Nexo, the place to earn on Bitcoin, Ethereum, and more.
Anchorage became the first federally chartered crypto bank under the Trump administration when then crypto-friendly regulator Brian Brooks headed the Office of the Comptroller of Currency. As U.S. regulators and a Democrat-controlled Congress scrutinize the crypto industry, how will the future of regulation take shape? Earlier, I asked Anchorage CEO Nathan McCauley for his thoughts on the matter, and we begin with how his crypto bank operates in the space. Have a listen.
We're going to be that custodian and responsible for auctioning off any of those assets when needed. And so we're going to be serving that in the way. Sure, yeah. We're a digital asset platform for institutional investors and institutional allocators. Anybody looking to invest in crypto assets or build a business in crypto, whether that's a fund, whether that's an offering for retail clients, whatever the case may be, we are here to provide infrastructure and custodial trading and lending services to anybody looking to participate in the digital asset
And
space.
what's exciting is you're one of the first kind of crypto native companies to get a federally chartered bank charter.
Yeah, first actually. We were lucky enough late last year and early this year to be granted a federal charter by the OCC.
Yeah.
So we operate as a national bank.
And that was when the OCC comptroller of the currency was Brian Brooks. So I wonder if you're seeing any differences now between how regulators are that you're talking to potentially versus, the ones that were there during the Trump administration.
Yeah, I think the biggest trend there is that the previous administration was really interested in specifically pushing things forward, maybe looking a little bit at doing a bit of trailblazing in a few areas. So we see our bank charter as kind of a trailblazing thing. And I see the new administration coming in and looking at how do we make sure that this is safe? How do we make sure that we do consumer protection? And then even if you look at things with, say, the infrastructure bill, how do we really kind of get this to a institutionalized level within the country? Funding infrastructure initiatives and doing those kinds of things. So it seems positive.
Yeah, we have SEC Chair Gary Gensler, who everyone thought would be very crypto friendly, but he has Coinbase in his crosshairs. Brian Armstrong went on a tweet storm, pretty upset about the way the SEC was handling things in his new crypto lending project. They're going to investigate Uniswap. I wonder how you see this regulatory crackdown, if you will, or this investigation or this exploration by regulators will pan out.
Yeah, I think the crypto industry at large has been very interested in looking for regulatory clarity, whether it's clarity about securities laws, clarity about qualified custody, clarity about trading. And so I see a lot of the stuff going on at the SEC, a lot of these investigations as things will be very clarifying. And after that clarification process, I believe is going to be fundamentally bullish for the space because we're going to have a much clearer understanding of what we can and can't do, what needs to happen within the confines of various regulated entities, and it'll be more clear in terms of where in the world to build these services.
Speaking of bullish trends, so you have some insights in how institutions are entering the crypto space. Tell me a bit about what you're seeing.
Sure. So we're seeing a huge amount of interest from all kinds of participants on the Wall Street side, whether it's the buy side or the sell side. Large institutional banks looking to come in, looking to provide offerings, and very large traditional hedge funds looking to come in and start to allocate. Additionally, seeing large asset managers want to come in. So just kind of across the board, everybody looking to come in. One of the more interesting trends we've seen recently is corporates. I can't necessarily say who, but we've seen a number of corporates come in.
What size of corporates?
Billion dollar companies. Several billion dollar companies coming in and wanting to borrow against their crypto positions. So they hold the crypto positions at Anchorage. Maybe it's the Bitcoin, maybe it's the Ethereum, and they get loans on that, either from our lending program or from traditional banks where the crypto is held as collateral.
That's really interesting to me because are these corporations that are known to be talking about crypto a lot, or is it more on the down low?
More on the down low. They're not. These are not the ones that are kind of publicly out there saying, "Hey, we have crypto positions." They're just using it as a way to diversify their treasury, keep it to themselves. Don't need to necessarily make a big fuss about it, but significant positions and a great trend. Especially exciting is the trend moving past just Bitcoin. People looking to come into Ethereum and looking at other assets as well and looking at how they can make allocations in that space.
So they're holding crypto in their treasury reserves.
That's right.
Wow. And what is the benefit of putting collateral up in crypto versus going the traditional finance route through the banks?
Well, you get access to a asset that I think many of these treasuries think is an appreciating asset that will increase in value over time. But then you can borrow against it, so you still have working capital. You can still run your business, pay your bills, pay your employees, whatever the case may be, but hold a appreciating asset over time. And I think they're really excited about that.
Anchorage has also been in the news because of Department of Justice contract. There have been a lot of ransomware attacks in the news lately, and so this figures largely in the government. And so I wonder tell me a bit about the contract and how that's going on with your relations with government agencies.
I think it's part of the overall trend of crypto coming into the light in a sense. More and more institutional and regulated adoption of it, and so naturally part of that is sure, some of it may be used for criminal activities. We have a justice system here in the U.S. That will do asset forfeitures of assets that were held by criminals. And so then the Department of Justice needs a custody system, and it needs a liquidation system to be able to take those assets, sell them, and return the U.S. dollar equivalent of them back into their ability to do that. And so we have a contract with the Department of Justice, the U.S. Marshals Service, where we are going to be that custodian and responsible for auctioning off any of those assets when needed. And so we're going to be serving that that way, and we're Really excited about doing that. One of the things that's been really nice about that is it's set the stage for a whole host of other conversations with other federal government agencies as well, who may have similar needs there. So we're looking forward to continuing to serve the government sector.
You touched on this a little bit, but corporations are interested in going beyond Bitcoin into potentially Ethereum and other cryptocurrencies. What kind of trends do you see there? And I understand you have a couple of funds along the way.
Yeah. So one of the nice funds that was launched over the last year was the Bitwise DeFi fund. The Bitwise DeFi Index, they came and held it with us, particularly because we're a full service custodian, not just custody, trading, and lending, but also the ability to participate in DeFi protocols, whether that be staking, governance, voting, these kinds of things. And so those kind of multi-asset funds that really have a more interesting strategy than just kind of buy and hold spot Bitcoin. A lot of them are coming to us and looking at ways to do that. And then there are a lot of institutional investors that come in either via those funds or directly with us to say, hey, I want to hold some of these DeFi assets, hold some of these new layer ones, like Solana is getting very popular these days. You heard Anthony talking earlier about Algorand. So we're seeing a lot of demand for these kinds of tokens, these kinds of assets, and these kinds of overall strategies.
And finally, the last point I wanted to touch upon was in 2017, in 2016, we saw a huge run up in the crypto markets and then a crash, and then we saw the regulators coming in, put a freeze on ICOs, initial coin offerings. Are we seeing that again? We saw again a huge trajectory skyrocketing crypto market. Now the regulators seem to be talking about crypto again. Where do you see this? How do you see this panning out?
Right now, crypto to me seems far more diversified than it was in 2016, 2017. If you look at kind of what was driving 2017, a lot of it was exactly as you said, the ICO boom. What we now see is that we have DeFi protocols taking off. We have NFTs. We have this whole movement around DAOs. We have additional layer ones that are providing better theses for a world computer. And so as you start to look at kind of the diversity of everything that's going on, I think that the clarity of the regulation is going to come in, plus the diversity of everything that's going on in crypto is going to be fundamentally very bullish for the whole space. Okay. And I think it'll be quite the opposite of what happened in 2017. It'll look to be more bullish into the rest of this year and into early next.
I guess the last one is, how is Anchorage going to expand, and what are you focused on amid this environment?
Yeah, continuing to make our services available via APIs. Any banks, any fintechs that want to come in we're very interested in serving them and being their sub-custodian and helping them out with that. And then more broadly, I would say, we've been a bit U.S. focused. We do have international clients, but look to us to do international expansion over the next year.
That was Anchorage CEO Nathan McCauley. Time now to check in with Crypto Twitter with our tweet of the day. This one from Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey, ominously tweeting crypto in quotations, and Tesla SpaceX CEO Elon Musk responding, "That's my safe word too." The bromance grows deep between those two, but Jack, I'd watch out. Elon can't get his mind out of the gutter. Lawrence doesn't have a safe word. Nevertheless,
there's no
that's
safety.
It from First Mover. Thank you, Lawrence,
Tether,
managing editor of Global Capital Markets. Oh, watch out. I'm your host, Christine Lee. I'll be back live at 3 p.m. with all about Bitcoin. Lawrence, Yom Kippur has barely just finished. Coming up at noon is The Hash. You're watching CoinDesk TV.